My partner has been weirdly inconsiderate lately and I don't know what's going on, if anything. I met my partner James 2 years ago when I was a freshman and he was a sophomore at the same college, and we started dating around December of that year, so we're coming up on our second anniversary. We have a very normal and good relationship. We're planning on marriage sometime in the next 5 years or so, once I've started my PhD and he's gotten established in his career. We have healthy communication, spend lots of quality time together, have shared interests, have fun and deep convos, and when we do argue, rarely, the second it starts to escalate into a fight we are both good at bringing it back down to earth and we always talk things through. We disagree on some things politically but we're both raised in liberal homes, him more so than me, and we can agree to disagree. We're also both queer, and, unrelated, we both had been sleeping around before we met and agreed to go exclusive. But here's the actual issue. This past summer we hadn't been able to find a way to visit each other in our home states, basically halfway across the US from each other, so we hadn't seen each other IRL for a bit more than 3 months, which was the longest we'd been apart since we started dating. We've been back together for just over a week now, mostly staying at his apartment until the dorms opened for me to move in the other day. I've still been sleeping over though, and something just felt a little off. I mean, I think it's normal that we had to get used to being around each other again. Nightly video calls were great, but it's still pretty different compared to being able to touch each other. But this really minor thing happened today that I just don't understand and opened my eyes a bit. I had some books delivered to James' apartment and he'd also gotten a package, and I saw that they'd been delivered as I was headed out to the door for a meeting and didn't have time to bring them to his room. They were in a safe spot. When I got back, I went to grab them and noticed only my packages were there, but not James'. My first thought was, oh shit, somebody must have taken his package. But why just his? So I'm getting ready to apologize for not bringing them in and telling him how weird it is, but when I get to his bedroom, I see the empty box on the floor and him getting ready to leave the house. He didn't tell me he was going anywhere and I would have maybe stayed on campus longer if I'd known I was going to be alone, but whatever. But when I asked him if he saw I'd gotten a delivery and why he didn't bring it upstairs, he said, oh, yeah. I figured you'd just bring them up. And you did, so yay. They're small books, and the packages all together would have been easy for him to grab. So I'm weirded out that he didn't do this one minuscule little favor. We do little things for each other all of the time, like grabbing extra drinks from the mini-mart or running errands for each other. Yes, he was on his way out when I talked to him, but the packages were stacked on top of each other, so it wouldn't have been even another flick of his wrist to grab them all. And I started thinking about it and realized things have been off because he'd been inconsiderate in other little ways. For example, earlier we were watching videos on my laptop together in bed and he put the pillow he was leaning on in front of my face, paused a video to answer a text and then went on his phone for 20 minutes while I waited for him to be ready. Making me look on Facebook Marketplace for another set of drawers to put my clothes in for when I'm at his place, because he doesn't like the way the one I already bought, and which had been in his room for the same purpose for almost a year, looks. I asked him to add an order of fries to his DoorDash after I'd had to fast for blood work the other day and he added it, deleted a milkshake he was getting, and said it was fine. But then when the food got here he said he hoped it was worth him not getting the item he wanted. It not a money thing, I always pay him back either with a transfer to his bank account or deducting the cost from what he owes me, when he knows I have a guilt complex about money and food. Keeps poking and prodding at me in areas that are usually fine, but not when I'm feeling sick or overstimulated. He'd always been so good about this in the past. Has been reverting to not asking as often about my day/thoughts/plans as I do his, which is like once or twice a day. This was an issue for a while about 6 months into our relationship, but he got a lot better about it after I talked to him about it. It most often the case that I'll ask about him, but he doesn't ask me questions in return until I prompt him, otherwise he'd just go on his phone. won't let me open the window to cool down his weirdly hot bedroom, even though I have heat intolerance and it disrupts my sleep, etc. I just don't really get it. I spend too much time on Reddit reading horror stories, so my anxiety is thinking of worst case scenarios, but it could be that he's still acclimating to having me here, or he's already stressed out, even though school hasn't started yet, or some other thing. I just don't even know if it's worth bringing up. I don't want to feel like I'm nagging him, my issue, not his, but this is bothering me. If it continues for another week or so, then obviously I'm going to talk to him, or if it gets worse, I don't think it will, but I'm just wondering if any of this comes off as odd to anyone else. Next story 2. Man I've been seeing won't date me, should I dump him? I've been seeing a man for 5 months now, and he has some red flags that I am aware of. To start off with, his past 2 relationships have been with 18-year-olds, one of them he was fucking when they were 17 but didn't start dating until they were 18. I brought this up to him as I think it's quite icky, and the only thing he had to say about it was that they were mature and just happened to be 18. I didn't plan it that way. Keep in mind he was 21 and 22 when these relationships happened, but the 17-year was when he was 22, so I think it's really gross. He asked me to date him once, but I didn't give him a solid response because I was drunk at the time and he was sober, doesn't drink, ever, and then 1 month later, the day before my birthday, I asked him if we should date and he said no, honestly, because you drink too much, and every part of my being wanted to say sorry, your exes weren't old enough to drink, but I held it in. We live in a part of Canada where the drinking age is 19. His other red flags are he was talking to this girl he met on Bumble and he told me she was nothing to worry about, and then one night we were at the bar and he was talking to this woman and had the biggest smile on his face, and I asked him who she was and he just said, oh, that's an old friend. We talked about her later in the relationship and he told me everything, that they never hooked up or met up and that was their only time seeing each other in person. It turns out the girl and I started talking to him around the same time, but she never had interest in meeting up with him even though he kept trying. They don't talk anymore, but it still makes me feel uneasy. The biggest red flag I get from this man is that he still talks to his ex. He has showed me the conversations and they really are harmless, but it still makes me very uneasy, especially considering they broke up 2 months before I started seeing him. They talk like they are old friends. Just casual convos about twice a month about what she's up to nowadays and what her life is like. I brought up to him how I feel uncomfortable about their relationship to each other and how disrespected I feel that he will still talk to his ex, and he said I will limit the conversations, but I'm not going to leave her on read. I know that my gut instinct is that me and him are toxic for each other on so many levels and I need to leave him, but I just want to hear what I should do from someone else. Comment. Aside from all his red flags like dating minors when he was in his 20s, he told you he won't date you. It sounds like that's what you're looking for and he can't give it to you. So what are your options beside dumping him? You shouldn't waste your time with him. A good man who is serious about you wouldn't be doing all of those things. Hope you can heal and move on from him eventually. You're not the victim here. Those girls are. You on the other hand are old enough to have identified this predatory behavior, and evaluated it as not a deal breaker for you. The thing that's actually making you question your relationship is that he's texting an ex. Not the fact that he was taking advantage of a wildly skewed power dynamic, but because he's having mundane conversations with her. You are not a victim. You don't sound like you actually like this guy. Why are you dating him? Or whatever you call what you're doing, since it sounds like you're going on dates, i.e. dating, but you also say he won't date you, so I'm not really sure what you mean by that word. Next story 3. My partner actually is good and loyal to me, but my time with my exes have me thinking irrationally. How do I stop? How do I stop thinking irrationally just because of bad exes? So, my partner is actually a great guy. Genuinely perfect person and the only person I've dated who actually treats me with any speck of honesty and kindness. I've previously been cheated on, lied to, hurt, neglected, etc. by countless exes. With proof, I'm not delusional LMAO, but for well over a year now, my partner has treated me like royalty, like, actual and proper royalty, which in me eyes is too much, but he disagrees. Though I digress, despite all of this, I regularly get so many spikes of envy and jealousy and fear, all that nice stuff. All things I've gained because of my trust issues that, a lot has given me, trauma with family and exes and the like. Now, I know he's faithful, I just do. I don't go through his phone or his accounts, I have urges to, but I repress them. Everything points to him being faithful, and nothing points otherwise. And yet, I still feel this way. The smallest of things, it could literally be him laughing hard or having a lot of fun with his friends, and I'll get spikes of jealousy and worry that I'll be left alone again. Or if he chooses to keep something from me knowingly, I know it's perfectly fine to keep some things privately, I do too, and I'm fine with him doing so because I understand, but for some reason the thoughts just come back again. I know it's irrational, I know it's dumb, I identify that none of it makes logical sense for me to feel this way, I overthink a lot and I always have for years. But yet I still feel like this and I don't know what to do. What do I do to help rid of these irrational thoughts?